Rain hit the jungle like shrapnel, hard, relentless, every drop slicing through the silence of war, somewhere in northern Burma. A single engine roared, then died. Moments later, the sound of metal tearing through trees, a P-47. Thunderbolt, one of the toughest birds in the Allied fleet, lay broken in the mud. Smoke curled from its wings. The pilot hung half-conscious in the cockpit, blood dripping from his temple. His name was Captain William Hayes, 27 U.S. Army Air Forces, a man who'd flown more than 50 missions, and never once believed he'd live past the next. Now he was alone, stranded, behind enemy lines. The rain washed the blood off his face, but not the fear. He could hear voices, faint. In the distance, Japanese. He ripped the pistol from his holster, crawled from the wreckage, and vanished into the jungle. The Burmese jungle wasn't just thick, it was alive. Every step whispered, every leaf hid eyes. Days passed, no rescue, no signal, no hope. Hayes drank from muddy streams. He wrapped his wounds with his own flight map. At night he dreamt of engines, of home, of sunlight that didn't smell like smoke. But one morning, something caught his eye. Footprints, dozens of them, bare, thin, heading east. He followed, through the dense green hell, through humidity that made breathing feel like drowning, until he saw it, bamboo fences, half sunk in the mud, a POW camp. He crouched low, counted the guards, 8, maybe 10, all Japanese infantry, exhausted but alert. Bayonets glinted under the rain. Inside the camp, bodies, not soldiers, ghosts wearing uniforms, starved. Hollow-eyed men in tattered Allied rags. Hayes's heart pounded. He whispered under his breath, "Jesus." He saw one prisoner stand slowly, only to collapse again. A guard laughed, kicked the man. Hayes clenched his fists. He could have walked away. He should have, but he didn't. He crawled backward into the jungle and whispered to himself, "I'm coming back for them." That night, lightning cracked across the sky. The jungle glowed for a split second, revealing the shape of the camp again, and Hayes's shadow, moving toward it. He watched from a hill for 2 days, mapped the guards' rotations, listened to their patterns, the morning whistle, the evening roll call, the sound of boots on gravel. Then he noticed something unusual. A group of Burmese villagers came each day to trade food, rice, fruit, sometimes medicine, for scraps or safety. Hayes saw his chance. If he could reach the villagers, he might have a way to help the prisoners, a chance to fight back, quietly. At dawn, he crawled from his hiding place. His boots were soaked. His skin was painted in mud and blood. He moved through vines, snakes, and the endless hum of insects. Then he saw them, a small group of villagers carrying baskets. One looked up and froze. A foreigner, a soldier, out of nowhere. The Yai. Women gasped. The men stepped back. Hayes raised both hands. "I'm not here to fight," he said softly. "I need your help." They couldn't understand his words, but they understood his eyes. War had burned this land for years. They had seen soldiers die in their fields, but never one like him. Lost, desperate, human. One man stepped forward. Older, calloused hands. He studied Hayes, then nodded slowly, and in that silent moment, a bridge formed between two worlds that war had tried to destroy. For the next few days, Hayes hid in the village. They fed him rice, cleaned his wounds, and showed him something. A path that led to the camp's back fence, where guards rarely patrolled. It was narrow, overgrown, dangerous, but it was a way in. At night, Hayes stared at the horizon. He could see the faint light of the campfires beyond the trees. Every flicker reminded him. Men were dying out there, waiting for a rescue that would never come. He couldn't sleep. He couldn't eat. He made his choice. He'd go back, not as a soldier, but as a ghost in the jungle, to save whoever was still breathing. Miles away inside the camp, Lieutenant Arthur Finch, a British medic, lay awake under the rain. He hadn't seen medicine in months. He'd been using bamboo shards to stitch wounds. He watched men die from fever, starvation, and silence. But that night felt different. The air was charged, the guards were restless, and for the first time in weeks, Finch thought he heard something. A faint sound in the distance, a rustle, a whisper. Something, or someone Martin was out there. He didn't know it yet, but the man who had fallen from the sky days earlier was coming for him. Hayes spent the next day gathering whatever he could find: a broken compass, a flare gun with one shot left, a rope made from torn parachute cloth, and a knife, dulled by rust. He studied the camp again, this time through a pair of cracked binoculars he'd found near his crash site. He watched as guards drank, laughed, and beat the prisoners for amusement. One guard fell asleep beside a lantern. Hayes noted every movement. Every weakness then. Thunder. Heavy. Perfect cover. The villagers helped him smear more mud over his uniform. He whispered a silent prayer, and as the first drops of rain began to fall again, he moved, back into the darkness, back toward the camp, back toward a story no one would ever believe. Night fell like a curtain, thick, silent only. The hum of insects broke the darkness. Hayes crouched behind a fallen tree. His heart pounded against his ribs. Rain soaked his uniform again at the jungle's cruel reminder that nature ruled this war, not men. He checked his watch. 47. Inside the camp, a guard yawned near the main gate. Another smoked under a lantern, the glow flashing across his face every few seconds. Hayes waited for that glow to fade. Then he moved, crawling through the mud inch by inch, the rope tied across his chest, a knife between his teeth. Every sound felt too loud, every breath a risk. He reached the bamboo fence, pressed his hand against it, and froze. Footsteps. A guard shuffled close. Hayes lay still, the mud clinging to his skin like armor. The man stopped, spat, then turned away. Hayes exhaled, slow, controlled. He began cutting through the bamboo, careful not to snap the fibers. Every slice felt like a heartbeat counting down to death. Then he slipped inside. Inside the camp. The air was thicker, the smell of rot, sweat, and fear mixed under the rain. Hayes moved between makeshift huts. He could hear the prisoners breathing, shallow. Tired human, he whispered. Finch? No answer. He tried again, softer this time. A weak voice replied, "Who's there?" Hayes knelt beside a skeletal figure lying in the mud. "Captain William Hayes, U.S. Air Forces," he whispered. "Don't talk. I'm getting you out." The man's eyes widened. "God, you're real." "Yeah," Hayes said. "But not for long if we keep talking." He counted the men. 32. Some too weak to stand, most barely breathing. He hadn't planned for this. He'd thought maybe a handful. 5. 6 at most. 32 was a miracle. And a curse. Finch, crawling beside him, said weakly, "You can't save us all." Hayes didn't look back. "Watch me." He crawled to the far end of the camp. There it was. The rusted supply truck he'd spotted earlier, its tires half buried in mud. The key still, hanging in the ignition, a relic of another time, maybe another war. Hayes opened the hood. The engine was dead, but he'd fixed. Worse, he scavenged what he could, bits of wire, a tin can, scraps from a broken lantern. Rain fell harder. The sky lit up with lightning. Each flash risked revealing him. Each rumble gave him a few seconds of sound cover. He worked fast, rewired the ignition, tightened the plug with a screwdriver made from a spoon, and then he turned the key. The engine coughed once, twice, then roared to life. Guards shouted, dogs barked, lights flared across the camp. Hayes slammed the hood shut and yelled, "Go!" "Move!" Finch stumbled through the rain, shouting for the others. Men rose, confused, terrified, but alive. Hayes jumped into the truck and slammed it into gear. Bullets tore through the air, the windshield shattered. A guard screamed as the truck broke through the bamboo gate. The POWs piled into the back, holding onto anything they could. Mud splashed up in sheets, rain mixed with blood. The jungle swallowed them as the truck roared into the night. But freedom in Burma was never easy. The truck's headlights cut through the darkness, revealing endless green and no road. Hayes gritted his teeth. "Hold on!" The tires skidded over roots and puddles. One of the prisoners fell off the back. Hayes slammed the brakes. He jumped out, ran into the dark, and found the man broken, bleeding, but breathing. He lifted him onto his shoulders and dragged him back. "Don't stop for anyone," Finch yelled. Hayes ignored him. He couldn't leave anyone behind, not again. He threw the man into the truck and hit the gas. Rain hit the jungle like shrapnel. Hard, relentless. every drop slicing through the silence of war, somewhere in northern Burma. A single engine roared, then died. Moments later, the sound of metal tearing through trees, a P-47. Thunderbolt, one of the toughest birds in the Allied fleet, lay broken in the mud. Smoke curled from its wings. The pilot hung half-conscious in the cockpit, blood dripping from his temple. His name was Captain William Hayes, 27 U.S. Army Air Forces, a man who'd flown more than 50 missions, and never once believed he'd live past the next. Now he was alone, stranded, behind enemy lines. The rain washed the blood off his face, but not the fear. He could hear voices, faint. In the distance, Japanese. He ripped the pistol from his holster, crawled from the wreckage, and vanished into the jungle. The Burmese jungle wasn't just thick, it was alive. Every step whispered, every leaf hid eyes. Days passed, no rescue, no signal, no hope. Hayes drank from muddy streams. He wrapped his wounds with his own flight map. At night he dreamt of engines, of home, of sunlight that didn't smell like smoke. But one morning, something caught his eye. Footprints, dozens of them, bare, thin, heading east. He followed. He said quietly, "We're not out." Not yet. He stopped the truck near a clearing. The villagers who'd helped him were waiting. Lanterns flickered like dying stars in their hands. The old farmer approached. He looked at the truck, then at Hayes. "You brought them," he said in broken English. Hayes nodded. "Now help me hide them." They moved quickly, covered. The truck with palm leaves led the prisoners into a cave beyond the tree line. Hayes counted again, 29 survivors, 3 missing. He stared into the jungle, fists clenched. He could still hear gunfire in the distance. Finch touched his shoulder. "Captain, we can't go back." Hayes turned. "We can't leave them." Finch shook his head. "They're gone." Hayes didn't answer. He just looked out into the rain and whispered, "Then I'll go alone." That night, he went back, no weapon, no plan, just the burning need to find whoever was left behind. The villagers begged him not to. Finch called it suicide, but Hayes didn't care. He crawled through mud and vines until the smell of smoke returned. The camp was still, burning bodies everywhere, Japanese and Allied alike. He moved quietly, searching the wreckage. Then, a sound, a cough. He ran toward it. There, under a collapsed hut, was a man barely alive, a young Australian, trembling, eyes wide. Hayes pulled him free, carried him back through the jungle. The man whispered, "Why'd you come back?" Hayes just said, "Because nobody came for me." As dawn broke, the first light of day spread across the trees. The rain had stopped. Mist rolled through the jungle like ghosts leaving the battlefield. The survivors huddled in the cave. Silent. Finch looked at Hayes, drenched and shaking, the rescued soldier over his shoulder. "You're insane," Finch said softly. Hayes smiled weakly. "Yeah, but we're still alive." He set the man down, sat against the wall and stared at the rising sun. For the first time in days, he breathed, but far away. Engines roared again. The Japanese weren't done hunting. Morning came slow. Heavy mist rolled through the valley like smoke after a bombing run. The jungle was quiet, too quiet. Hayes sat at the cave's entrance, rifle across his knees. His hands trembled. Not from fear, from exhaustion. He hadn't slept in 3 days. He hadn't eaten in 2, but his mind wouldn't stop. Every rustle in the trees sounded like boots, every crow like a scream. Finch approached. "Him, Captain," he whispered. "They're coming." Hayes turned. Far down the valley, faint movement shimmered through the mist. Columns of soldiers, Japanese banners. They'd found the tracks. Hayes looked around the cave. 29 prisoners, most unable to walk. Villagers whispering prayers, no ammunition, no food, no way out. But giving up wasn't an option. He stood. "Listen up," he said. Voice raw but steady. "They'll be here by nightfall. We can't outrun them." Silence. Even the jungle seemed to listen. "We'll split up," Hayes continued. "Civilians go north. POWs stay with me. I'll draw them away." Finch stepped forward. "You'll die," Hayes looked at him. "Then maybe the rest of you won't." The villagers refused to leave without helping. One of them, the old farmer, handed Hayes a bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside was a grenade, an old revolver, and a handful of bullets from the river. the farmer said. Japanese patrol. Not come back. Hayes nodded, eyes wet with gratitude. Thank you, the old man bowed slightly. You save our sons. We save you. For a moment there was no war, just humans trying to save one another in a world gone mad. By noon, they'd moved deeper into the jungle. The prisoners limped, leaned on branches, carried each other when they had to. Every step was agony, every breath a gamble. Behind them, the sound of engines grew louder. Motorbikes, trucks. The Japanese were closing in. Hayes knew he had to buy time. He turned to Finch. Take them north. Follow the river. I'll hold them here. Finch grabbed his arm. You can't hold off an army. Hayes grinned faintly. I don't need to. Just slow them down. He moved to higher ground and a ridge overlooking the valley. There he set up his last defense, a single machine gun, salvaged from the truck, propped on rocks and hope. He lay in wait, sweat mixed with rain, hands shaking. The jungle around him smelled like thunder. Then, movement, figures emerging from the fog. 1, 2, 20. Hayes exhaled. All right. Come on, he pulled the trigger. The gun roared. Echoes shattered the silence, bullets tore through leaves and branches. Japanese soldiers scattered, diving for cover. Hayes kept firing until the barrel glowed red. He ducked, rolled behind a rock, reloaded with trembling. Fingers he heard shouting in Japanese. Orders. Flanking. Moves. They were surrounding him. He waited, counted the footsteps, then hurled the grenade. The explosion ripped through the jungle, shaking the earth. Birds scattered. Smoke filled the air. Hayes used the chaos to move. He crawled through vines, ducked behind fallen trees, shooting in bursts. He wasn't fighting to win, he was fighting to delay death. Hours passed. The rain returned. The gun jammed. Hayes drew his knife. 2 soldiers rushed him. He dropped one with a slash, rolled and fired the revolver into the second. Then silence again. He crouched low, heart pounding, lungs burning. He looked up at the ridge. A Japanese officer stood there. Pistol raised. Their eyes met. Bang, Hayes fell back. Pain ripped through his shoulder. The world spun. He hit the mud. The officer approached slowly. Speaking in calm Japanese, Hayes didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone, finality. He reached for his revolver. Empty. His hand dropped. He closed his eyes. Then, gunfire, not his, from the trees behind. Finch and 2 prisoners burst from the brush, firing stolen rifles. The officer fell. Hayes gasped as Finch slid beside him. Couldn't let you die alone, Finch said. Hayes coughed blood, smiled faintly. Didn't I tell you to go? Yeah, Finch said. And I never listened to orders anyway. They laughed, just for a second, just enough to remember what it felt like to be human. Together, they dragged. Hayes back toward the river. Japanese shouts echoed through the jungle. The sound of pursuit, relentless. The rain fell harder. The river ahead roared like a beast. Finch looked at Hayes. This is it. Either we jump or we die, Hayes nodded. Weakly. Then we jump. They stumbled to the edge behind. Them's the jungle lit up with gunfire. In front of them, the raging river. Hayes grabbed Finch's shoulder. See you on the other side, and they leapt. The water hit like stone-cold violent. It pulled them under, spun them through darkness. Hayes fought to breathe. He surfaced once, gasped, then vanished again. The river carried them miles downstream. When Hayes finally crawled onto the muddy bank, he couldn't tell if it was night or day. He lay there, coughing water and blood, staring at the sky. Beside him, Finch was unconscious but alive. The others, Singon, scattered, maybe dead. Hayes wanted to scream, but all that came out was a whisper. Not like this. He rolled onto his back and saw movement in the trees, silhouettes. Carrying torches, he reached for his knife, then stopped. They weren't soldiers, they were villagers. The same Burmese villagers who'd helped before. They lifted him up, carried Finch between them. One said, "Safe now." "River hide you." Hayes barely heard. His body gave up. The world faded. But his mission wasn't over yet, because somewhere beyond that jungle, thousands more prisoners still waited for someone who'd never come, and William Hayes, broken, bleeding, half dead, still intended to be that. Someone. Rain fell hard on the jungle that night, the kind of rain that blurs memory and mercy alike. The wreckage still smoked in the distance, What remained of Nakajima's airfield was nothing but twisted steel and silence, but deeper in the valley, a flicker of light, a small campfire, and around it, the survivors. Miller lay back against a tree trunk, breathing in the damp air. The sound of insects returned, cautious, as if the jungle itself was exhaling after holding its breath for days. Henderson's wounds had been cleaned. One of the rescued POWs sat beside him, whispering a quiet prayer. For the first time in days, they were safe. At dawn, the mist rolled down the hills like ghosts. A signal flare cracked open the sky, bright red. Moments later, the distant thump of rotors. Rescue. The Allied planes circled above the canopy, dropping a smoke canister. Men below waved their makeshift flags, torn shirts, branches, anything. Miller watched from the edge of the clearing. His eyes reflected the pale morning light. He'd done it. He'd brought them back. But something in his chest ached. He looked toward the ridge where the Japanese patrol had last been seen. He knew Nakajima had fallen there, not as an enemy. He said quietly, "We're not out." Not yet. He stopped the truck near a clearing. The villagers who'd helped him were waiting. Lanterns flickered like dying stars in their hands. The old farmer approached. He looked at the truck, then at Hayes. "You brought them," he said in broken English. Hayes nodded. "Now help me hide them." They moved quickly, covered the truck with palm leaves, led the prisoners into a cave beyond the tree line. Hayes counted again, 29 survivors, 3 missing. He stared into the jungle, fists clenched. He could still hear gunfire in the distance. Finch touched his shoulder. "Captain, we can't go back." Hayes turned. "We can't leave them." Finch shook his head. "They're gone." Hayes didn't answer. He just looked out into the rain and whispered, "Then I'll go alone." That night, he went back, no weapon, no plan, just the burning need to find whoever was left behind. The villagers begged him not to. Finch called it suicide, but Hayes didn't care. He crawled through mud and vines until the smell of smoke returned. The camp was still, burning bodies everywhere, Japanese and Allied alike. He moved quietly, searching the wreckage. Then, a sound, a cough. He ran toward it. There, in Japan, families returned to rebuild their homes. Somewhere near the same valley, villagers still spoke of the ghost pilot, the one who brought strangers through the storm. No one ever found his remains. Some said he died when the rescue plane arrived. Others believed he simply vanished into the fog. Content with his choice. 30 years later, Miller stood again in that same valley. Older now, hair gray, heart heavy with time. He walked slowly through the overgrowth, guided by a local boy. The jungle had taken back everything, but in one corner and still standing, that same bamboo cross, rotting, half buried, but there. Miller knelt before it. He placed a fresh white flower at its base and whispered, "Thank you, Captain Nakajima." The wind carried the words away, up through the trees, into the endless blue. He looked up. For a moment, he could swear he heard it, the faint hum of an old Zero engine, somewhere far above, echoing through the clouds, fading into the past. Miller smiled, closed his eyes, and let the memory rest. The story of the pilot who rescued POWs from the jungle became legend, passed down by veterans, whispered by locals, and retold in fading diaries. But history never wrote his name, just one line in a forgotten report. Unknown Japanese aviator, aided Allied escape. Presumed KIA, and that was all. But somewhere in the silence of that jungle, beneath the same heavy rain, his spirit still flies, not for flag, not for country, but for something far greater, for humanity.